You are standing in the tunnel beneath Munich's Olympic Stadium. Orange shirts fill the narrow space around you. Above your head, 75,000 people are waiting to see who will rule the world. Within 2 minutes, West Germany will be losing without having touched the ball. This should be the beginning of the Netherlands becoming world champions. Instead, it becomes the moment your team loses the trophy and wins something stranger, the future of football. How can a team change the game forever without winning its biggest match? To understand that, you have to forget the idea that the Netherlands arrived in 1974 as an established superpower. Your country had not appeared at a World Cup since 1938. Dutch professional football had only been formally introduced in the 1950s. Internationally, the orange shirt carried little of the fear attached to Brazil, Italy, or West Germany. Then Dutch club football exploded. Feyenoord became the first Dutch club to win the European Cup in 1970. Ajax followed in 1971, then won it again in 1972 and 1973. In 4 seasons, clubs from a small football nation took Europe's greatest prize 4 times. That was not an accident. At Ajax, Rinus Michels had taken charge in 1965 and transformed a struggling team into a machine built around movement, discipline, and imagination. He was called the General, but his football was not based on players obeying fixed orders. It depended on players understanding when the shape had to change. Johan Cruyff became the mind inside that machine. Cruyff was listed as a forward, but a position on a team sheet could not explain what you were watching. He dropped into midfield. He drifted toward the wing. He pulled a defender away, then sent a teammate into the space the defender had abandoned. When one player moved, another replaced him. That is the simplest way to understand total football. It did not mean everyone ran everywhere. It meant every important zone remained occupied, even while the players occupying those zones constantly changed. A defender could attack. A forward could begin the press. A midfielder could cover the defender who had just charged past him. The shirt number mattered less than the space in front of you. Football historian Jonathan Wilson later traced this revolution through the evolution of formations in inverting the pyramid. Writer David Winner, in Brilliant Orange, connected the Dutch obsession with space to a country that had spent centuries organizing, reclaiming, and reshaping land. The FIFA archive shows the practical result. A team that could make the pitch feel enormous when it had the ball, and suffocatingly small when it lost it. That second part is often forgotten. The 1974 Netherlands were remembered for elegance, but their beauty was aggressive. When your team lost possession, several orange shirts attacked the ball immediately. Pressing means denying an opponent the time to look up, turn, and choose a pass. The Dutch did it together, not as isolated chases. Behind that pressure, the defenders stepped forward. This created an offside trap, which means moving the defensive line up at the right moment so an opposing attacker is caught beyond the second-last defender when the pass is played. It was risky. One late step could leave the goalkeeper exposed. But risk was the point. Ruud Krol and Wim Serbier advanced from fullback. Arihan could begin in defense and appear in midfield. Johan Neeskens ran from penalty area to penalty area, tackling, pressing, passing, and arriving to score. Goalkeeper Jan Jongbloed often stood far from his own goal, ready to collect balls behind the high defensive line. Your goalkeeper was not only protecting the goal, he was helping the team compress the entire pitch. The system looked spontaneous, yet it required extraordinary coordination. If Cruyff left the center and nobody filled it, the attack lost its shape. If one defender stepped forward while the others remained deep, the offside trap collapsed. If one player pressed alone, the opponent simply passed around him. Freedom only worked because everyone understood the same rules. That was the paradox at the heart of the Dutch Revolution. The football looked like individual expression, but it depended on collective intelligence. Rinus Michels had very little time to prepare the national team for the 1974 World Cup. He took over after qualification and had only a handful of warm-up matches. The squad also brought together players from rival club cultures, especially Ajax and Feyenoord. Yet the core ideas were already inside them. Many had spent years facing or practicing versions of this football. Michels did not have to teach every movement from the beginning. He had to turn separate groups into one functioning organism. The tournament began against Uruguay. You won 2-0. Then came a goalless draw with Sweden, remembered partly for the moment Cruyff dragged the ball behind his standing leg, turned, and escaped a defender. The move became known as the Cruyff turn. It looked like a piece of street football placed inside the World Cup, but it also captured the larger Dutch idea: use an opponent's expectation against him. Bulgaria were beaten 4-1. Then the tournament changed format for a second group phase, and the Netherlands became terrifying. Argentina were beaten 4-0. Cruyff scored twice. The Dutch pressed in waves, pushed their defensive line toward midfield, and repeatedly trapped Argentina in spaces that disappeared before a pass could arrive. East Germany lost 2-0. Then came Brazil, the defending world champions. This was not the joyful Brazil of 1970. It was a harder, more physical side, and the match became increasingly violent. But the Netherlands refused to retreat. Neeskens scored. Cruyff met a cross from Krol with a sharp first-time finish. Brazil lost 2-0, and the orange shirts marched into the final. By then, your team had become the story of the tournament. The numbers were impressive. The images were stronger. Cruyff pointing, Neeskens charging, Krol appearing where a winger should be, opponents staring at an offside flag after believing they had escaped. The Netherlands were not merely beating teams. They were making the traditional map of a football pitch look outdated. So let's reconstruct the opening of the final. It is July 7th, 1974. The opponent is West Germany, the host nation and reigning European champion. Franz Beckenbauer commands the defense. Gerd Müller waits in the penalty area. Bertie Vogts has been given the exhausting task of staying close to Cruyff. The whistle blows. The Netherlands kick off and begin passing. One pass becomes 5. 5 become 10. West Germany cannot touch the ball. After 16 Dutch passes, Cruyff receives possession inside his own half and accelerates through the center. Now the system becomes one man. Cruyff carries the ball toward the German penalty area. Uli Hoeneß tries to stop him and brings him down. Referee Jack Taylor points to the spot. Johan Neeskens places the ball down. His penalty flies through the middle. After 88 seconds, the Netherlands lead 1-0. No West German player has touched the ball. Could total football produce a more perfect opening? But the opening becomes a trap. The Dutch have demonstrated complete authority before the match has had time to become a contest. Now they have to decide whether to control the final or continue proving their superiority. West Germany, humiliated by the start, are forced into the match emotionally and tactically. Helmut Schoen's team does not collapse. Vogts follows Cruyff closely, limiting the space in which he can turn. Beckenbauer begins stepping forward with the ball. Wolfgang Overath finds more influence in midfield. Instead of chasing every Dutch movement, West Germany become more selective about which spaces matter. In the 25th minute, Bernd Holzenbein goes down in the Dutch penalty area. Another penalty. Paul Breitner scores. Now the final is level, and something subtle has changed. The Netherlands still have movement. They still have technique. But the match is no longer being played entirely on their terms. Just before halftime, Rainer Bonhoff drives a low ball into the area. Gerd Müller controls his body in a crowd of defenders, turns, and finishes. West Germany lead 2-1. Müller's movement is almost the opposite of the Dutch spectacle. It is small, economical, and lethal. One adjustment, one turn, one shot. The second half becomes a test of whether the Netherlands can transform admiration into a result. They attack. Sepp Maier makes saves. Crosses flash through the area. Dutch players appeal, chase, and try again. The equalizer never arrives. The final whistle sounds. West Germany lift the World Cup. You are left with one of football's most uncomfortable questions. If the Netherlands were the team that changed everything, why did they lose? The easy answer is arrogance. The romantic story says the Dutch wanted to humiliate their opponents after scoring, became careless, and paid for it. There may have been emotional overconfidence, but reducing the defeat to vanity misses the deeper lesson. Total football was not a magic spell. It demanded physical energy, perfect distances, rapid decisions, and emotional control. West Germany survived the initial storm, adjusted their marking, competed in midfield, and used the penalty area more efficiently. The Dutch created the match's grandest idea. The Germans managed the match's decisive moments. That distinction still defines elite football. A system can make you superior over 80 meters of the pitch and still fail inside the two penalty areas. Possession can control territory without controlling the score. Beauty can increase your chances, but it cannot remove uncertainty. The counterintuitive truth is that losing helped preserve the legend. Had the Netherlands won, the 1974 team would have become another champion, perhaps one of the greatest. Because they lost, they became an argument. Every generation could look at them and ask what football should value. Trophies, style, innovation, courage, or some balance between all four. Their ideas kept traveling. Cruyff carried them into coaching at Ajax and Barcelona. At Barcelona, his teams helped establish a culture in which the ball, space, and positional intelligence became central to the club's identity. Pep Guardiola later developed his own positional game from that inheritance, organizing players so the pitch remained balanced while passing lanes constantly opened. Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan used coordinated pressing and a compact defensive line to transform Italian and European football in the late 1980s. His system was not a copy of the Dutch model, but it shared the belief that the whole team had to move as one unit. Modern pressing teams still follow the same basic logic. Make the pitch small when the opponent has the ball. Make it large when you have it. Attack space, not merely defenders. Replace the teammate who leaves a zone. Use the goalkeeper as an extra passer. Watch almost any major match today, and you can see pieces of 1974. A center back steps into midfield. A fullback moves inside. A striker drops deep while a winger attacks the center. 5 players surround the ball seconds after possession is lost. These actions now look normal. That is the greatest proof of Dutch influence. The Netherlands did not invent every ingredient. Earlier coaches and teams had experimented with positional exchange, pressing, and fluid movement. Jack Reynolds influenced Ajax across several decades. Vic Buckingham encouraged a passing style in Amsterdam. Hungarian, Austrian, and English ideas had moved through European football long before 1974. Michels and Cruyff did something different. They combined those ideas into a complete, visible, repeatable vision and displayed it on the world's largest stage. Television carried orange shirts into homes across continents. Coaches saw not only a clever formation, but a new relationship between the player and the pitch. A footballer did not have to remain imprisoned inside one position. A team could be structured without being static. Discipline and creativity did not have to be enemies. That is why the Netherlands changed football without winning the World Cup. The trophy confirmed who won the tournament. The performances changed what future teams believed was possible. Your country would reach the final again in 1978 and lose again, this time to Argentina. It would return in 2010 and fall to Spain, a nation whose football had been deeply shaped by the Dutch influence flowing through Barcelona. That circle feels almost cruel, but it also reveals the scale of the legacy. A football nation can lose the final and still shape the team that wins decades later. An idea can outlive the score that appeared to defeat it. Style can become so influential that opponents eventually use parts of it against its creators. The Netherlands left Munich without the World Cup. Yet every weekend, the orange shirts return. They return when a team presses together. They return when a defender becomes a midfielder. They return when a goalkeeper begins an attack and a forward becomes the first defender. You are standing in the tunnel beneath Munich's Olympic Stadium again. Only now, the match ahead is not one final. It is the next 50 years of football.